Good afternoon. Today I have the pleasure to introduce you to our new Theologian in Residence, Megan Strollo. Dr. Strollo is the Assistant Professor of Biblical Languages at Union Seminary. She's also someone very familiar with CBF. While in Richmond, Megan was a member at Tabernacle Baptist and is now a member at Fredericksburg Baptist. Dr. Strollo was also our Mission Madness pastor a couple of years ago. On a personal note, Megan and I know each other from being members at Tabernacle. I've heard her preach, teach Sunday school, and lead church committee meetings. I know how talented Megan is and how much theological depth she brings to church life. So it's safe to say that I'm super excited about Megan joining our team. But today, we just want to spend a couple of minutes getting to know our new theologian and find ways that she might be able to connect with your congregation. So Megan, welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and your family.
I often have the question asked of where are you from? And I joke and laugh every time that question is asked of me because I will respond, I'm from the Navy. So I've lived in a lot of different places. My dad spent 33 years in the Navy. And so home base for us was our family. I am one of 5 kids. And so we're quite a crew when we gather together now that we're married and all have our own children. And so home base is really important. And that is home for me. My husband and I met about 16 years ago working at a candy store in high school down in Williamsburg. We've been married now for 11, going on 12 years. We have 2 kids, a 5-year-old daughter named Faye and a 6-month-old named Nellie. And they are a joy to watch as you know, watching siblings grow in love for each other, even when they fight and bicker sometimes. It's been pretty sweet to watch. So our house is pretty loud and crazy these days.
Nice. So tell us a little bit about your theological education.
I attended Union Presbyterian Seminary and received my Master of Divinity in 2012 and just sort of never left. I love the community at Union. I love the ecumenism of people from different denominations coming together. I love the professors, the faculty that have been here while I was a student. So I stayed on and received my PhD in Hebrew Bible or Old Testament here, and then again, never left. And so now I'm serving on their faculty, which is a true blessing, and I'm very grateful.
So you know that CBF and Union has joined forces to create a Baptist house at Union Seminary, and we could not be more excited. So what could students expect from their education at Union?
You know, Union is changing in a lot of ways these days, and it's wonderful and exciting. So you can expect deep theological conversations from your faculty, but also from your fellow students. The experiences I've had here, our students are engaged and ready to ask questions, not necessarily finding answers, but that's what I say is the point. The more questions we ask, the better. That drives our faith into deeper places and more meaningful places. Students can expect a wide range of different conversation partners from all over the world, really. People who are bringing different ideas of faith, different ideas of ministry. Union is a place that more and more we see people moving out into ministry in different ways. Church life, congregational life, certainly, but they're also going into nonprofit work and social justice movements and social ministries and things like that that really make for really great conversation in classrooms. They can expect some academic rigor, to be honest. It is a school that prides itself on really asking those hard questions and diving deep into history and tradition, but with a mind towards the future and how our traditions change and how they need to change as the church moves into the world.
One more quick question about Union. What was it like being a Baptist at Union?
I had a great experience. My MDiv, you know, it's funny, I wasn't the only Baptist there. So this great partnership that we have now with CBF and Union together really highlights a Baptist life and a Baptist energy that's been there for a while. There have been several really great Baptist ministers who've come through Union, some really great Baptist theologians that have come through Union. My experiences in classes, I think the Baptist students, I like to count myself among them, brought new insights to perhaps the majority Presbyterian community as we engaged what worship looks like in our different settings. But I really enjoyed that time, and I enjoyed learning from other traditions. You know, and Baptist congregations these days are kind of a mixed bag themselves. So as we find people settling into places more because of the communities as opposed to any kind of denominational ties, it was really great for me to experience while in seminary those different traditions.
So what do you teach?
I teach the biblical languages. So at the moment, I teach biblical Greek and biblical Hebrew, and they are wonderful and fun.
What was your dissertation on?
My dissertation, as I said, was in Hebrew Bible. And I'll say, you know, the motivation for my project really stemmed from a saying in some Jewish traditions that's known as tikkun olam. And it literally means something like repairing of the world. And it was this idea in some Jewish tradition that humans and God actually partnered together in recreating or repairing the world. And so I hinged upon these books in the Hebrew Bible, which in Jewish scripture, in the Hebrew Bible, are known as the Megillot. In our Christian Bibles, they're not collected into these 5 books sequentially, they're scattered throughout, but they're the books of Ruth, Song of Songs, Ecclesiastes, Lamentations, and Esther. So in our Christian Bibles, we don't necessarily get the sense that these books are connected in some way, but they're actually all stemming from the post-exilic period, a period in Jewish history that was rife with trauma. The Babylonian exile and sending of people into exile had created doubts and fears and questions about who their community was and who God was, where God was. And these books stem from that period of time and react in some way or respond to those questions and feelings, some in very different ways. The Book of Lamentations is a much darker response, a more traumatic one, whereas the books of Esther or even Ruth send forth a really positive message, but they're all asking these questions of how do we live in a world perhaps where God doesn't speak to us from a burning bush or call our names as we sit in prayer. How do we partner or work with God to create a kinder, more just place? And that's the questions that those 5 books are really asking and addressing. And I was drawn to them because I think that we in our world today resonate with that. A lot of us will find that we're asking these questions of where is God working or how is God speaking to us today? And we don't see or hear God in an audible or visible sense. It's more the Spirit's urging and us finding ways to move and be God's hands and feet in the world in that partnership. And so I was drawn to those books and looking at some of the connections they have in terms of those questions of how God works and how humans are called to act and be agents for the sake of God and for the sake of the world.
Absolutely. I mean, those are 5 books that we don't hear many sermons from.
That's right.
But they seem to have a deep theological landscape for where we are right now in terms of where is God in this pandemic and what's our response in a land that is certainly different than it was 8 months ago.
Yeah. And they really do promote this notion that we are called to act. One of the things when you look at the 5 books together, especially, you see overwhelmingly this sense of human agency, that we can act on behalf of God or with God for the sake of our community. And they are very community-oriented books as well. You have Esther, who is working to save her people. You have Ruth, who is working to save not only her mother-in-law, but also her entire community. Ecclesiastes is asking these questions in a more theoretical light, but he says things like, two are better than one, right? And aren't we better when we are working together in this world, even when we don't understand the way it goes? And we can't predict the way that God will move, but when we work together, that would serve us better. So,
yeah. And then the whole idea of lament is not something that's even in our theological tool bag. Yeah. So what is your passion? What are your passions? What are your keen interests?
it's something, it is a calling, and I will call it that very specifically because more and more as I reflect on the things that I love to do and the things that I find myself doing, it is teaching. So I'm so grateful to be teaching the Bible and the biblical languages. The thing that I love about working with churches is teaching and education, and feel that one of the things that we will all do better, because we are a community of a priesthood of all believers, and I believe that wholeheartedly with everything of my being, that every single person that makes up the community of faith, that makes up a particular congregation or the larger Big C church, has a part to play, and we're all better when we've delved deeply into scripture and into our tradition, asking questions. I'm a huge proponent that doubt is not a bad thing, but that doubt is actually seeking answers to questions we have, and that doing that is part of faithful living. It makes God alive for us. It makes scripture alive for us to be engaged with it and asking questions. So doubt isn't disbelief, but doubt is simply seeking a deeper understanding. And that is the epitome of faithful living, I think. So when I view the work that I do, the passions that I have, it is helping people find ways to do that in a safe space where they feel comfortable asking questions, where they can feel comfortable bringing up things that they wonder about, things that trouble them about scripture in some cases, things that inspire them, and being able to engage it in a really lively way is faith.
Absolutely. So because I know you, I know that you love the local church. How do you see your gifts kind of corresponding with your work with local churches? What do you want to do in your role as a theologian in residence? How do you want to connect with local CBF churches?
Well, I think you just said it. I want to connect. I want to find ways to meet people and engage with people, find ways to teach and to educate from beyond just my office. And in this pandemic world that we find ourselves in, we've found new ways to connect with one another. And so through Zoom or through other media platforms, we're able to connect much more easily with folks who live on the other side of the state, getting to know one another and being able to reach out in that way. But connections are how I would love to find ways to engage in this role, really meeting people on the ground, and meeting lay leaders as well. There's such beauty in those faithful Sunday school teachers, and finding ways to help them feel more confident and feel more compelled to teach in a way that is passionate and faith-seeking, is something I would love to be able to do.
Awesome. So I know that you are finishing up your first blog for CBF Virginia. Can you give us a sneak peek? What is it going to be about?
So I've been reflecting a lot about Advent, and reflecting, I think this time of year always calls for us to reflect on the year that we've had and the year that is coming. And maybe perhaps there's never been a better time to reflect on the year that we've had, and look with hopeful eyes to the year to come. not just with the health crises, but with the political unrest that we've had, the social unrest that our country and our world has experienced. Never has there been a better time to look forward with hopeful attention, but also with one that is faithfully acting. And so I'm looking at that and looking at this aspect of Advent that perhaps we overlook too often, which is the fact that Advent started out as a way of preparation for those who were seeking baptism. In the early church, people would be baptized traditionally at Epiphany. And so the weeks leading up to Christmas and to Epiphany would have been preparation for those times. And then also preparation for not just Christmas and the Nativity and the Incarnation, but actually preparation for the second coming, the parousia, as the New Testament calls it. And so looking a little bit about those kinds of things as we move forward into a new year. But stay tuned.
Awesome. Yeah, we're looking forward to reading that. I'm pretty sure that'll come out hopefully next week. So how do people get in touch with you?
You can call me, and you can go on to upsem.edu and find a lot of my information there on the faculty page. But you can also email me at mstrollo@gmail.com. And I really do look forward to hearing from folks around the state.
Well, we are glad that you have joined us, and we hope that churches use your gifts and your skills. And we're looking forward to the months and years ahead of working together. Megan, thank you for this time. We appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been great to talk to you, and I look forward to hearing from others.